Hi. So as you probably saw from the video title, today I'm going to be making a terrarium using this cool jar. Now I found this cool jar whilst at Walmart looking for a Mother's Day present for my mother. And I came across this jar and I thought, well, I have to turn that into a terrarium because, I mean, just look at it. It's asking for it. So that's what we're gonna do. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to address this. Now, this, I don't know why it's here, because if you lift up on this, it lifts the whole thing up, and you're obviously not gonna hang this from somewhere, so I don't know why this is here, but it's also got a hole on the bottom, and I think we can just pull this out, but I need to fill that with something so it doesn't leak air, because we don't want it to leak air. But the first thing I'm gonna do is that. I gotta get this little doohickey thingy out of here. Gonna pull it like that, and there we go. So now we have a hole. I'll hold it up to the light. Yeah, see, that's bad. So my plan for that is, well, I'm probably just gonna fill it with silicone. It's not gonna be that difficult. So that seems like a pretty good place to start. So let's get this silicone. Okay, the hole's all filled up, super easy, should hold. As long as it prevents water from getting through, we should be okay. And as of right now, not much light's getting through, so we should be good. So we'll let this guy dry while we're working on the rest of the terrarium. So let's go work on the rest of the terrarium. So while we're waiting on that, we need to address the terrarium. And the first thing we need to do is the false bottom. Now, since this is a bigger terrarium, I could use sand, but I don't want to because I don't like the look of it in some things, and I have some mica. This is basically just some like big clay balls, and I'll just put a layer of those in there, and they not only will absorb excess water, but they will also create a drainage layer. That way the substrate doesn't get all like moist and gross. So I gotta add that, and then we gotta create us a false bottom. Okay, so our false bottom's in place. Should work pretty well. The mesh is a little bit flappy right now, but the substrate will weigh that down. And speaking of substrate, that's the next step. Now, there is something to keep in mind when doing substrate for orchids, because orchids are epiphytic, meaning that they don't actually need soil to grow. They get their nutrients and, you know, whatnot from just the air and everything. In their natural habitat, you'll see them growing on trees. So that brings me to my dilemma. I can either attach the orchids directly to the hardscape, which might be kind of cool if I can get the right hardscape for that, or I'm gonna have to create an arid substrate. Now, I think what I'm gonna do is just regardless, I'm gonna create an arid substrate. I mean, it's not like arid, but it's like, you know, it's very, not super like compact. So it's not just coco fiber. We need a lot of like orchid bark. Obviously, it's where it gets its name, but you know, using a lot of this in a substrate will help with that. Because you can see the orchids that I have picked out, this one is pretty short. And, you know, looking at this from a side view, you could see how, like, attaching it to the log, it would fit. But this one's a bit taller. And in fact, it might barely fit at all. I want to make it, you know, the right substrate. That way, if that's not a possibility, or if I just change my mind, then I won't have to redo the entire thing. But I kind of have to find a happy medium too, because I do have some other plants that are going in here, such as, you know, ferns and ivies. Luckily, ferns and ivies are both epiphytic too. So the next thing we got to do is mix up the substrate, and it's made out of, starting with a block of coco fiber that I let sit in some water so it could get all floofy. Added that to the mix, and then I added a little bit of orchid bark like I mentioned, and then some of this activated carbon. This one's for aquariums, but it'll work either way. Then I mixed everything up and decided that I needed a little more coco fiber. I'll put a full ratio list on screen as well as in the description. That way you can make it yourself. Okay, so our substrate's finished. I'm hoping this will work well. It's actually pretty happy with it. It's got, you know, the coco fiber to retain the moisture and for the other plants, but it's also got enough of that, like, you know, you try and compact it and it just doesn't, which is what I want. That way the orchids should be able to grow in it and should not have any issues. So the next thing we gotta do is put it in there. Normally I'd put a charcoal layer, but as you just saw, I put some in here, so there's no need to do that. So the next thing we gotta do is fill this puppy up with substrate, and then we can get on to the scape. So let's get this substrate in there and then let's get scaping. You guys should subscribe. Okay, so the substrate's in place. Looks pretty good. Obviously sloped it up towards the back just to helps give it a little bit of depth. Just, you know, kind of adds a little more visual interest even. Just, you know, having that layer that goes up just kind of brings it closer to you almost in a way. Like the whole feel of the terrarium and the whole scape and whatnot. Something I do pretty much every time I add substrate to any kind of terrarium enclosure or something. It really helps bring the look full circle. So the next thing that we need to do is add the hardscape, and I kind of want this hardscape to be, I'm not really sure how I want it. I almost want it to look like a dead tree stump that's kind of been chopped off, but like broken off in a natural way, kind of like right in the middle. That way it can kind of feel like the orchids are almost taking over that tree stump, I guess. One thing that is concerning me at this point in time is height. You know, I'm looking at the height of this right now and looking at my orchids, and I don't have a whole lot of room to work with, but I think it will be fine in the end. Also some of these can droop a little bit, and I guess that can kind of counteract that, but I'm gonna go ahead and get scaping, and the wood I'm going to be using is, well, I don't really know, honestly. I have a whole bunch of leftover pieces in here, like even this piece of tiger wood from last week's project. Not really sure what I'll use. I'm just gonna dig through here, see what I can find, and hopefully get something cool. So let's get scaping. Okay, I think I'm finished with the scape, at least the main parts of it. It's kind of weird. I always have a hard time with terrarium scapes. I don't know why, but it's like I can't visualize them until it's over, and then I rethink them and I'm like, wow, I should have done that. But I do really like this one. It's kind of got that like tree trunk look, and then I was able to create kind of like a rooting off effect that I really like. I was originally going to center this in the middle, but I decided to go with more towards the right just because I think it looks better. So the next step I think is going to be adding the moss. I think that's going to bring everything together. You know, obviously it's going to make it look a lot better, and then I think we'll get on to adding the plants after that. Might even leave just the back area without any moss just to kind of make it easier on me to plant the actual plants. And then I kind of want to try something. So normally I'll add moss to a terrarium and then I'll just add leaf litter and botanicals over it. But what I kind of want to try this time is leaving certain areas open for that. So I kind of want to, instead of just covering the entire thing, I kind of want to just maybe leave like a little area here, just kind of open, and then just cover that in leaf litter and botanicals just to see if I can create a little more of a kind of worn down look, I guess. Because a lot of times my problem with the leaf litter is if I just set it on the moss, it looks too like new, like it looks like the leaves just fell, and I really want like a worn kind of established look. So I might try that. If it doesn't work, I'll just cover it up with moss and do the usual thing. But that's the next thing we're going to do, is add the moss. And the moss that I have, here's my moss. I don't know what this stuff is, but I really want to eat it. I don't know why. Such a good variety. This is the same stuff that I used for the raining paludarium. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's definitely a cool one. But this stuff works great in terrariums and all sorts of stuff. I've been using it for probably close to a year now. Unfortunately, I don't live somewhere where I can go out and collect my own moss, so I have to buy it, which, you know, it's basically just like moss from the outdoors, except I'm paying for it because I live in a really dry climate and I don't have any moss, unfortunately. But regardless, the next thing we need to do is add the moss. So look down there. No, down there. Down. It's not that hard. So the moss is all prepped. We got to put it in here. Again, like I said, I might leave some spaces and then a little bit open in the back. This should be enough. If it's not, I have a little bit extra from the last project, and I also have an entire another pack of this, so I'm pretty set on moss. But it's time to get mossy. I say it's looking pretty good. It's still kind of weird. I feel like everything just doesn't like blend well, but and then there's a few other little areas that I kind of want to just add some little twigs to, like some little extra things, and then I'll do quite a bit of leaf litter here and then just kind of scatter it around places and little botanicals and whatnot. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Not really sure where I'm gonna put them, but the plants that I'm going to be using for the whole thing, excluding the orchids, are these guys. These are just some little ivies, and then these are some rabbit's foot ferns. I probably won't use all these. In fact, I'll probably only use like 1 or 2 of them, maybe just a few cuttings of this. But these are what I'm planning on using just because I didn't want it to be completely orchids. I want to have a little bit of variation in there and just, you know, fill in a little bit more space. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prep all these. I'm gonna take them out of the pots, shake off the soil and whatnot. I'm gonna do the same to the orchids. And then I'm gonna get them planted. Pull up your plants and let's get planting. Guys, the plants are in place, the orchids are in place. It's looking so cool right now. I just gotta add the final details. I do have some ficus that's supposed to come soon. That won't be here for this video, unfortunately, but I'm still putting in there. And then the same with springtails and isopods. I wasn't able to get any in time, but I will be adding some in here at some point. So the last thing we gotta do is add all the final details, like any little pieces of moss, maybe some, you know, the leaf litter and all the little twigs and whatnot. And then we're done with the project. It's looking good. I'm gonna get those last pieces finished and we'll finish this thing up. Hey there! I just want to say a huge thank you guys for watching. As usual, you know, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want more videos. I know this was kind of a smaller, you know, shorter project, but I really had a fun time with this one. I love making terrariums, like I said at the beginning, that have like something to kind of base them around. That way it's easier and it's a lot more fun for me because that way I kind of have something that's like the main, you know, main attraction of the terrarium. Looking back, I really haven't made that many terrariums. I mean, I got the tree trunk and the triple terrarium stone right there, but this one is by far the best one that I've made. Really love the results of it. Couldn't have been happier. Definitely want to do more terrariums similar to that one. I've got some other ideas for some cool ones, so go check out last week's video for this raining paludarium if you haven't already. It's a really cool project. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.